It is indeed an honor for me to deliver an address in this important gathering to speak on building national resilience in ASEAN countries. I would like to convey my gratitude and appreciation to the government of Japan and area that have kindly hosted this ASEAN-Japan Symposium on Disaster Management 2015. I would like also to acknowledge all ASEAN countries who have demonstrated its joint effort in developing further disaster management implementation through research, science and technology development, as well as implementing activities that bring positive social and economic impacts to the communities. Distinguished participants, today we live in a time of great crisis, confronted by the grave challenge that humanity has ever faced: the increasing numbers of natural disasters, ecological consequences of climate change, and environmental degradation on a planetary scale. Resilient social infrastructure development and preventive investment increase the quality of development itself, as well as capability of disaster prevention and mitigation. From the Third World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai, we have reached a final commitment on Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2013. As reiterated by the Secretary General's Special Representative for Disaster Risk Reduction of the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Ms. Margareta Wostrom, the adoption of this new framework for disaster risk reduction opens a major new chapter in sustainable development as it outlines clear targets and priorities for action, which will lead to a substantial reduction of disaster risk and losses in life, livelihoods, and health. Furthermore, she also highlighted that the implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction over the next 15 years will require strong commitment and political leadership and will be vital to the achievement of future agreements on sustainable development goals and climate later this year. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to awaken ensuring the sustainable management and development, reducing risk toward the resilience of our people, especially children and youth, as our next generation, our land, and our nation for the future. Indonesia had experienced extreme catastrophe in these past decades. A great earthquake and tsunami in 2004 bordering the Indian Ocean had devastated most of the coastal areas in Aceh, Nagro, Darussalam, and Nias Island, with other 13 countries had been affected, such as Malaysia, Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, Maldives, Somalia, and Kenya. After the Indian Ocean tsunami, the Hyogo Framework for Action, HFA, was created to offer a set of action to sustainability, reduce human and economic losses, and build the resilience of nations and communities to disaster. Followed by the emerging regulation of Disaster Management Law number 24 in the year 2007, which also acknowledges education as one of the priority. In spite of that, the integration of disaster management with countries that is within the disaster-prone area had built a strong network, international and regional level. From the last ASEAN ministerial meeting in Sendai, we have agreed on have a joint statement that support the implementation of the post-HFA 2015 result, in which one of the statements had mentioned that the adoption of the post-2015 framework for disaster risk reduction presents an opportunity to expand our understanding and link our initiatives with our effort to address the impact of climate change, shape our aspiration for a world without poverty, and improve our humanitarian action toward the first World Humanitarian Summit. This is watershed moment for all of us, a unique opportunity for us to ensure that this concurrent post-2015 processes will produce coherent and alignment across policies, practices, and partnership for a world that is devoid of hunger and poverty, development that is transformative, inclusive, and sustainable, and societies that are resilient and adaptive in the face of current and future disaster and climate risks. Many of the most destructive natural disasters of the past few decades occurred in ASEAN or other Pacific Rim countries. Even without these catastrophic, infrequent events, some ASEAN members are buffeted by repeated and very frequent natural disasters, and many are very vulnerable to future disasters associated with the changing climate. The data from BNPB had shown that an increased number of disasters in year 2002-2013 shows that almost 80% are categorized as hydrometeorological related disasters, such as flood, landslide, drought, forest fire, and high tide. This trend will be increasing due to the anthropogenic influences and future development of the nation. Distinguished delegates and participants, Indonesia has considerably improved its disaster management using the Yogo Framework for Action as reference. The country has built its national policy and regulatory framework on the disaster. Mainstreaming of DRR into the national plan and budgeting plan for the midterm phase in Indonesia. Disaster management and risk reduction have been put among priority development programs, particularly as investment to protect economic growth and human development. I think this is the right time for our country to revitalize its disaster governance and leadership in disaster management, with the ultimate purpose of not only saving lives, but also livelihoods and the entire development chain. For the future, knowledge, skill, practices, and policy will be the potential resources dealing with the risk. In the meantime, the population are growing, development are expanding, urban are sprawling, even more communities will need risk information dealing with their life. We have also believed that with sharing of knowledge, science and technology will strengthen the resilience of the communities. One of the statements of the Sendai framework for DRR had mentioned that investing in economic, social, health, culture, and educational resilience of persons, communities, and countries and the environment, also through technology and research, which also highlight the promote investment in innovation and technology development in long-term, multi-hazard, and solution-driven research in disaster risk management to address gap, obstacle, interdependencies, and social, economic, educational, and environmental challenges and disaster risk. Indonesia is ready to be the international partner hand in hand for sharing knowledge and center of excellence on disaster risk reduction in ASEAN countries. There will be more challenges that Indonesia will face on disaster, which have been intensified by the climate change. With the growing number of population and assets exposed to hazard in densely populated coastal areas, the economic and human impact on disaster may also increase. Therefore, I would like to use this opportunity to call for governments and DRR stakeholders within ASEAN member states, as well as our long-standing partner Japan, to further enhance cooperation and partnership in reducing disaster risk and adapting the climate change. Furthermore, I would also like to remind us all the importance to also emphasize building resilience at the local level, as the adverse impact of disaster affect mostly communities at the grassroots level. Under Sub-Agenda 4, Sustainable Natural Resource and Environmental Management and Disaster Management, it is mentioned that the target of development in disaster management and disaster risk reduction is reduction in disaster risk index in growth centers that are located in hazard-prone areas. Through first, mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction into sustainable development framework at the national and local level. The second, reducing vulnerability to disaster and through enhancement of the capacity of the national government, local government, and all communities in disaster management. All above changes in policy will shape the future conduct of disaster risk reduction and disaster management in the country. At the same time, the future arrangement of DRR and disaster management in Indonesia will also be enriched by lessons learned from the implementation of SFA1 and guided by Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, before I end this speech, I would like to once again express my sincere gratitude for your commitment to take an active part in this endeavor. I am convinced that this event will allow all participants to engage in fruitful and constructive discussions that will produce a strong DRR practical guideline that will bring to our better future life. Thank you very much, Excellency Dr.